and welcome to Hypnotize Me, the podcast about hypnosis, transformation, and healing. This is Dr. Elizabeth Bonet, and I'm your host. Disclaimer time. This podcast is not a substitute for mental health treatment, nor should it be. If you need therapy or hypnotherapy, please seek a trained professional. I do hypnosis all over the world, so if you'd like to learn more about me, you can do that at my website, drlizhypnosis.com. That's DRLIZ hypnosis.com. Now on to our episode. Let's start this week with the podcast exchange. In February, I'm part of an exchange where we're talking about other podcasts that you can check out. It's the theme of spreading the podcast love. This week's podcast that I'm going to talk about is Sexology with Dr. Nazanin Moali. This one is one of my favorite podcasts. I listen to it all the time, like almost on a weekly basis. She covers fascinating topics all about relationships, intimacy, sex. She sometimes gets explicit, so definitely know that before you listen to this one with little ears in the car. She is a psychologist, so approaches it with a well-researched, well-thought-out viewpoint, as well as a lot of humor. So I think it's a podcast you'll really enjoy. Give it a listen sometime. You can find it at sexologypodcast.com. This week's interview is with Joan Sotkin. She helps entrepreneurs and practitioners experience freedom from struggle, personally, professionally, and financially. She is the expert when it comes to understanding how emotions learned in early childhood can affect a person's business and financial outcomes. Thousands have benefited from her groundbreaking book, Build Your Money Muscles, and her online programs. Her newest book is The Search for Connection, a spiritual journey to physical, emotional, and financial health. I have followed Joan for over a year or so. I heard her on another podcast. And in this interview, we talk about all kinds of different stuff, her experience with hypnosis, why she doesn't like the word abundance, and how trance state can help you overcome old messages and old habits that you learned as a child around money. So it's a fun, fascinating interview. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Hi, Joan. Welcome to the Hypnotize Me podcast.
Hi, it's really great to be here.
Yeah, I'm so happy you're here. I was so happy when you said yes to the interview because I've followed you for over a year now, I would say. So really happy you're here.
Well, that always surprises me. When people say I've been following for you for years, it's like, because I don't know until they show up.
It's true. Yeah, people will say the same thing for me. Like I've been part of your newsletter or I listen to your podcast, and you don't know until they send you an email or they show up somehow. Right. Yeah. So let me start with the question that I ask most of my guests, which is, what was your first experience with hypnosis?
My first experience with hypnosis was probably 25 to 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. And someone I knew, I was living in Orange County, California, and there was this woman who was in her 90s who I had become friends with, and I was doing a lot of healing, and she hypnotized me a number of times in order to go figure out what was going on for me.
So when you say figure out what was going on, did she do age regression? Like, let's see what age things happened at? Or was it more like, let's put you under hypnosis and see what comes up?
I don't remember exactly. I remember she used the elevator thing to get me under. Uh-huh. Now, this is 30 years ago.
We still use the elevator.
Yeah,
we still do.
She did the elevator thing. Uh-huh. And I evidently am easily hypnotized. Okay. Because anyone who has done that since then has, I go really deep and I really cooperate with the hypnotist. So that was the first time. And I had been doing a lot of different healing modalities. So that was one of the things that I did.
So how did you find it? Could you share your experience of it with us?
Well, I remember some of the more recent ones, which were probably 5 years ago, or
Okay.
a little bit more than that.
So what were the
And
more recent ones for?
well, I actually it was probably more than fun, probably 10 years ago. I have had a long series of physical problems, which also creates emotional problems. And I was always looking for the answers. It wasn't until 10 years ago that I found out that I have a connective tissue disorder that was causing most of my problems. But there was emotional stuff. And I remember when I did this last round, whenever that was, I lose track of time now. I've been around too long. And, and, having very, very clear memories of recreating whatever situation we were talking about, where I could really see things. And I've been doing so much emotional work for so long that it's very easy for me to go deep into my emotional body. I just, it's odd because when I was hypnotized, I didn't necessarily, I would say to myself, am I really hypnotized? Yet I was definitely in an altered state. There was no doubt about it.
Interesting. So you had some doubt arise, but then after the experience is done, you're like, oh no, I was in some kind of altered state.
But even when I'm in the middle of it, if I start doubting it, then I know, I can observe myself and be in it at the same time.
Yes, which is a common experience.
Yeah.
Right. And I find too that people who tend to question and tend to be more analytical, they'll sometimes have that experience more so than someone, let's say, who's less analytical, where they're like, what's going on here? It's like that third person observer coming in.
Yeah.
That watches yourself.
And I tend to be analytical, even though I spend time traveling in other dimensions. I have a very active right brain. I also have a very active left brain. If you want to divide it up that way, it's questionable whether those divisions really exist.
Yes, yeah. But it is an easy, I think, image for people to hold on to sometimes, that right brain, left brain. So did you find it helpful then at the time?
Yes. My whole path, I'm in my 70s. And when I was in my 30s, I was told I was a hypochondriac and I could never be healthy. And I had a long list of physical and emotional problems. So when the doctor said to me that I would never be healthy, I said, that's not my story. And I started studying physiology and microbiology and psychology, whatever I could find, in order to figure out how this thing works, the body-mind, and what I needed to do to fix it. So I was living in California at the time, where there were a lot of choices. There was acupuncture and polarity and all sorts of things. And so, I've got very into electrical medicine early on. And actually, this was when I was in Atlanta. So I've been on the alternative path for a really long time. I gave up sugar 45 years ago and have not eaten sugar or high level, really yucky carbohydrates for 45 years. So I've been on a health kick for a long time. And I think that virtually everything I've tried along the way has had a positive effect. Now I'm very healthy. And so I tend to do more self-care than anything else. And, I exercise every day and I eat right and meditate all the time. And, I think I don't think it's possible to have one thing that fixes it. I think that you have to change on a deep level in order to change your life outcomes, whether it be health or wealth or anything else. I think that you have to alter how you're being in the world, your thoughts, your beliefs, your emotions, the decisions that you make. And that's why it surprises me that people think that there's an instant cure. If I do the 10 things that they outlined in this article I read, that I'll be okay. No, because you really have to get past your own resistance to becoming almost a different person on a lot of levels.
Yes. Okay, so you see it as more a tool in the toolbox for getting to that deep level change. I would agree with you.
Yes.
Like nothing's a magic solution, right? Not the article with the 10 tips of what to do.
Right.
Not therapy,
Right.
traditional, not like it is. I see it more as integration. Like these different things will help you work on different levels. But yes.
Right. And I think you have to know how to reprogram your subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be happening on a regular basis. I use a technique called Be Set Free Fast. I learned it after I had learned the emotional freedom technique. And I really like BSFF and wrote the current manual with the clinical psychologist who put that technique together.
Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, it's one of the emotional freedom, one of the energy psychology techniques, and it doesn't have any tapping. And what you do is you read a fairly, a complete but brief, it's not that long, instructions to your subconscious that basically says, because your subconscious will believe whatever you tell it. So you're going to tell it that whenever I use this Q word, you're going to release certain things that are blocking me, or, so you're telling your subconscious what to do. And then the actual session, which you can do by yourself or with someone else, I often do it with my clients, where you're saying things like, I'm a good person. And so you're actually treating that statement. And if you're treating it so that if you don't believe it, you're actually going to shift that. And if you believe it, you're just acknowledging it. And then you say the Q word. So I'm a good person. My Q word is terrific. So I say terrific afterwards. But I use it, the way I use it when we're working with emotions and blocks and things, I'll do a protocol where I say, I release my need for shame. I'm willing to let go of my need for shame. I'm willing to let go of shame.
Wow.
I want to let go of shame, and each of these is followed by the Q word. And I'm a person who feels good about themselves. So I
Powerful.
take it, and it really is. And I like it better than EFT because there is no tapping, and you can do it silently. I often, when I don't do this that often anymore, but my system works. I'll wake up in the middle of the night and can't go back to sleep. And that's my signal that something's trying to come up. And so I go through my own inner process, and then sometimes I'll do a little EFT, but I often do the Be Set Free Fast to let go of. Recently, I became aware of my fear of becoming really wealthy. When I made a lot of money with my crystal business and wound up going bankrupt, I realized that I'm afraid to get to that point again where I'm earning in today's money $500,000 a year. Because when I did it last time, it had a painful ending. And even though it was 30 years ago, that trauma is evidently still there. I've worked through a lot of it, and my business is expanding very beautifully, and I became aware of this fear. So I would do something like I release my fear of wealth. I give myself permission to release my fear of wealth. I'm willing to let go of my fear of wealth. I want to let go of my fear of wealth, and I'm perfectly happy being wealthy. And then I'll look at why would I be afraid of being wealthy? Well, because it can be very separating. It would change my relationships with my friends. And so I would look at all the different nuances of fear of being wealthy. My fear that I was going to screw it up again, because when I made all that money last time, I screwed it up, which is not an unusual thing to do, but it hurts, even though if you understand, lots of people do that.
Yeah.
So it's, so it becomes part of my process of self-awareness and development, and I find it very effective.
I'm having a memory now. You have like a mini money course that people go through, and I think
financial freedom formula.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you. Financial freedom formula. Yes.
A holistic blueprint for success. And in that one, I teach the power word technique.
Okay.
Which I introduced in my book, Build Your Money Muscles. But I didn't want to do the whole Be Set Free Fast, because that's a whole nother book.
Oh,
and so
okay.
I scrunched it down to the power word technique, and people tell me that works just fine. So that's
what I'm remembering. I remember reading about the power word technique and working through that process myself, because I did the course and online, and found it really helpful. And to me, it really felt similar to like self-hypnosis for me. Like, this is a power word that I'm setting into my subconscious. And when I say this word, it activates that pathway, let's say.
Right. And you gave yourself instructions to your subconscious before you started.
Yes.
And people have told me they find the power word technique very effective. And it's simpler than the Be Set Free Fast. But if someone is a therapist of some sort, using the Be Set Free Fast book helps them learn how to create the statements that have to be made.
Yes, it sounds like it goes deeper. It goes a little deeper.
Yes, it does. Yes,
Free
yes,
Fast.
It does.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it gets more to some of those underlying issues that are going on that may come up.
Right.
Okay. Fascinating. And then it is, right? It's fascinating how all these different things come up. And I know your focus is prosperity, abundance, financial freedom.
I don't ever use the word abundance.
You don't? Why not?
No, because wealthy people never use that word.
Really?
Yeah, because they just live it. It's a word that's used by people who are struggling to make more money.
Ah, okay.
So
why do you think that is?
Because, I mean, what the heck does abundance mean? And they have sayings like, the world is abundant and you're meant to be abundant. That's BS. I mean, if we were supposed to be abundant, the world wouldn't be suffering the way it does. And people do these affirmations, I'm an abundant being and all this stuff, when the subconscious is going, no, you're not. No, you're not. I mean, Gary Craig with the EFT calls it the tail enders. And I think there's a whole lot more that has to be done in order to develop a habit of earning a lot. You know, people will do the affirmations, the whole, law of attraction thing and everything. They never talk about learning how to manage your money. Because no matter how much you try to change your mindset, if you don't keep track of your expenses and your income, you're not going to stay wealthy, even if you get wealthy. I learned that the hard way.
True.
I was bringing in $50,000 a month in today's money, and I went bankrupt because I just kept buying more crystals. You have to know when to say no. And people who are on the abundance kick think that you're going to have so much money that you can do anything you want to do. Well, I know a lot of wealthy people, and they tend to be more frugal than the people who are on the abundance kick.
Ah, yeah, it's like The Millionaire Next Door. You remember that book?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I have it. And when people I remember they used to say, well, act as if you're rich. And all that meant was I'm going to go buy whatever I want.
Oh, geez.
And that's
that could get you into some real deep trouble financially.
Yes, it does. I got myself into really deep struggle, but I had a lot of crystals.
Uh-huh. Right. So you prefer the word prosperity?
Prosperity, yeah, and I do prosperity rituals and I have things to remind me. But really, it's really about learning about the world of money and how to take care of it. Because once you do that, then your subconscious trusts you with money. In other words, when I say I'm afraid of wealth, it's because I screwed it up one time. And I want to make sure I don't screw it up again. I was keeping track of my money. I had a bookkeeper came in 3 days a week, but I didn't know that bookkeepers don't tell you what not to do. They just listen to whatever you tell them and they write down whatever you're spending. They don't say, you really shouldn't do that. That's a controller. And I didn't know that. And there was no internet to tell me all these brilliant things. So I think that it's good to have a positive outlook and to learn how to do that. But if you're a person who grumbles a lot, to me, you're always going to grumble a lot unless you change that. If you're a person who feels alone a lot, it's going to be hard for you to become wealthy. And in my book, Build Your Money Muscles, I talk about the 5 main habitual feelings that keep people from making progress financially. And, in the years since I've written the book, I realized that the need for connection and feeling touch deprived are 2 of the things that really keep people from making money. And you can know that's happening if you're always in this longing space. And a lot of people on the prosperity path are always in a state of longing. And if you have a state of longing for more money, well, then you're always going to be longing. That to me is what causes over-earning. Very few people talk about over-earning. But why would you need another million? It's that, I need more. I need more. My goal when I got on this path was to not allow my bank account to determine how I feel.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I did a money program under Earners Anonymous, which I found very helpful. And you and I have talked about the process of not identifying as that anymore. Like it became something that I didn't identify with anymore, but it did reveal a lot of things to me. And one of them was that often my mood was determined by my bank account. And that was also one of my goals. Like I don't want that to happen anymore. I want to be able to wake up in the morning and feel good, period. Like doesn't matter what my bank account says. And it was a slow growth process to really move into that for myself, but it's very doable.
Right. And as an entrepreneur, you never know what your income is. And it goes up and down.
So true.
And the ups are easy. It's when the downs, you have to have total faith that if you haven't run out of money before, you're not going to run out of money again. And I did things that were not very bright from some people's point of view, but I'd get down to where I had just $100. Yeah, that was it. And I had to get to that point where it didn't bother me. The amount of money I have there's that saying, well, your net worth is a reflection of your self-worth. That's BS.
Oh yeah. No, I don't agree with that at all. Particularly when, how could that even be true? Most of the world doesn't have a high net worth. That doesn't even make sense to me.
And I find it really funny that so many practitioners, coaches particularly, are always looking for high-end clients. That's the new thing. You can buy a course for $3,000 to tell you how to get high-end clients. What people don't realize is that high-end clients are sometimes the most difficult people to work with. And everyone I have spoken to, the other day I was talking to a senior vice president of a bank, And I asked her if it was true for people she knows. The wealthy people are, the less anxious they are to spend their money, and the harder it is to get them to pay. Now, that's a generalization,
Yeah.
but it's generally true. And
Uh-huh.
so these people have this fantasy that if I get high net worth clients, they're going to be easy to deal with. Well, I can tell you from experience, they're not.
Uh-huh.
So the idea is for you to be where you are and see who you draw in. When I draw in higher net worth clients now without trying.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't try to get a whole lot of coaching clients because I like to do groups. I like to service both levels.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to make sure that whoever I'm working with on a one-to-one basis has been on the personal growth path for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I just started with someone new today. People who can become wealthy when they're still blocked emotionally, they're harder to work with. And if you haven't dealt with all of your emotional stuff, then it's going to be hard to take someone who's really stuck to the next level.
Yes, there's an element there of walking the path yourself and being ahead of someone on that path to be able to work with them.
Right. It's like a lot of therapists, and again, I'm making generalizations.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of therapists listen to their clients but don't feel their pain because they haven't dealt with their own pain. And one of the reasons that I can be so effective is because I'm not afraid of anyone else's feelings because I'm not afraid of mine. And I've gone really deep into the emotional body. When I work with people, I'll say to them, I'm feeling sadness coming up. Because when I work with someone, I'm actually there with them.
Mm-hmm.
So there with them, I can intuit, whatever word you want to use, what they're feeling. And I feel it. I'll feel my stomach, kind of scrunch up, or the sadness comes up, or, I can really feel what they're feeling. And to me, that's the effectiveness of the session because they feel connected in a way they never felt before. And it's that connection that makes the difference.
Absolutely. The connection does make the difference. And my experience of therapists is that the better therapists, and you start to go into specializations, you get the better therapists, but one, have often specialized in something that they overcame themselves.
Yes.
So they know the feelings, they know the path, but two, often have been in therapy themselves. So when I meet a therapist who's never been in therapy, I'm always very surprised. Not that they couldn't be effective because I allow for all kinds of possibilities in the world, but it's very surprising to me that they don't know the experience of being a client and some of the vulnerabilities that come with that. And then three, I think I had a very wise and talented therapist who used to talk about using your own body as a tool with your clients. And that's exactly what you're talking about. I think there's even, don't hold me to this, listeners, but there's a book called Focusing, and it's a very old book. It's written, I would say 60s or 70s, but it talks about that process of tuning into your own body to see what is coming up when you're across from a client. So this is whether you're a therapist, a coach, a friend, even, right? Really an energetic connection that you're having with someone, like using your own senses to say, okay, what's going on here, and creating that connection with it, and also being brave enough to talk about that. And obviously in a coaching relationship or a therapist-client relationship, there's permission to do that, right? The boundaries are there.
Yes. I mean, most of my clients my one-to-one clients are men. I don't know why, but that's just the truth. And I think part of it is because I was brought up, I have two brothers and a dominant father. And so I'm more comfortable with men on some level because I had to deal with them more as I was growing up. So I think that's part of it. But The guy I worked with today, he knows, he said, I'm numb. I'm just numb. And so I take them through a process. My goal is to help people get in touch with the kinesthetic experience in their body at any time. Mm-hmm. And when people don't have a feeling vocabulary and they're afraid of their feelings, so I do this technique where I take them, I said to him, put your hand on your solar plexus and take, I had him have his eyes closed. And I said, when you're there, do you feel contracted or expanded? That's all they have to learn how to do. Am I feeling contracted or expanded? Because you can't start by asking them what they're feeling. They have no feeling vocabulary. I was brought up.
This is true.
I was brought up in a household where the spoken rule was Sotkins don't feel. So I never developed a feeling vocabulary, and I had to figure out and this was like 30 years ago. I had to figure out how to tell what I was feeling, and I realized, then I found out after reading Candice Pert that the feelings don't happen in your head. They're neuropeptides that attach themselves to receptors in your cells, and that's why you have a gut feeling or your shoulders feel tense. So, and just noticing the feeling in your physical body will help you release it, because then the feeling has been felt, and that's what allows them to release.
Absolutely. Yes, and it is a process for me, when I work with people, starting with the body. So, okay, where are you feeling something in your body? Where is that physically? And now let's see what kind of quote unquote feeling that is. I also have the color chart that has like 100 feelings on it, right? It's like, okay, one of these is going on.
The people that I work with, that's too advanced for them.
Well, the color chart is from the head, right? Like, oh, let me look at this from my head and see what I'm feeling. It doesn't work that way. I agree with you. It works in the body. Are you contracting, and where are you contracting? Is it the stomach? Is it the heart center?
No. I take them to the stomach.
Oh,
and say, do you feel contracted? I take them because if they're uptight, no matter where you take them, they're going to be contracted.
Yes.
So, they're tense. And then what I do, the next step is to put your hand over the place where you're contracted and make the sound of the feeling. And they usually start out with something exciting. And I try to get them to the point where they're going, because that's expressing the feeling.
Yeah, right.
That's getting the feeling out of the system. And that's the goal, because when you break a leg or bump into something, that's emotions trying to get out of your system. It's all that energy trying to get out of your system. And so the best way to do that is to express the feeling, and making sounds is a really good way to do that.
Yes, absolutely. For years, I actually taught myself not to cry. Okay, and that's my own history with my own mother, because it was too much of a vulnerable position as a child to cry. It gave her too much power. So my work as an adult was to learn how to cry again and to really feel safe in doing that. And it was a turning point for me when one of my friends actually, and it was a newer friend, I just met her, and she said, Elizabeth, crying is just a cleansing. That's all it is. It's still hard for me sometimes to cry, but I try to pretend to be my friend and say, it's just a cleansing. That's all it is. It's an energy release.
Yes. And that's what expressing emotions is about. It's an energy release. Now, you were present in a session I did the other day where I did one of my group energy adjustments.
Yes.
Right? You were there?
Yes.
Okay. And I was making some pretty weird sounds.
Yes.
And what I do is I do this very intuitively. I get everybody into an altered state. and which you understand, it's not any different from hypnosis.
Right.
And I do a lot of releases with sounds. So I'll say to the group, and everybody's in this trance, and I'll say, okay, my hand is on your solar plexus. And invariably the sounds that come out are anger. And by my making those sounds, it releases it for the people who are in the group.
I absolutely felt that. It was a release.
Okay. And so that's where I've taken it next, is where I get a group of people. I do this one-to-one as well, where I take a person into an altered state, and then I make the sound of their feelings. Because that's what I've been doing this stuff for a really long time. And if I'm doing it one-to-one with someone in my presence, and I touch their body, like I'll touch the back of their back, and I'll say, I'm feeling early childhood stuff here. And I'll make the sound of what I'm feeling.
So it's an intuitive process for you.
Yes, absolutely. Because when I learned how to do this, your audience doesn't know the story, where I gave everything I owned away in the 1970s. And I had no money. I never knew where I was going to stay. I was learning how to listen to that inner voice. And I was guided to not only do it with crystals and stones, but to do it with sound. And I was taught how to do this healing. This was in the early 1970s. So it's not like there was a channeler on every street corner.
I thought there was in the 70s.
No.
I think we've gone backwards.
This is really early on. I was the first person to market crystals and minerals for healing and meditation nationwide.
Wow.
And I had a line of stones called Joan's stones that were in 600 stores. And I was the first one to do that. So, I've been on the cutting edge of this stuff for a really long time.
Yeah.
And now what I want to teach people is how to use rituals and symbols to work with their subconscious. So I actually wrote a little ebook, and I'm putting together ritual kits, and this is for business people.
Yeah.
Because, everybody's getting into crystals and stuff now. Well, let me show you how I've used them in my years of healing. And so I'm collecting Buddhas and Ganeshas and Lakshmis and, symbols. Because, like things like Ganesh, which is a popular symbol, who is the Hindu god of removing obstacles and wealth. And so if you put right now, I'm looking at a Ganesh and a happy Buddha and a green aventurine heart and a couple of ruby crystals. And when you have this in your energy field and you see it, it affects you on a subconscious level. People tend to give the crystals and things power, but I say no, the power is within you. It's just going to stimulate your subconscious to lead you in the right direction.
Yeah, it does. It's like a stimulus there that's right in the corner of your eye at all times. Right.
So it's reminding you. And so this is much more fun than going, you have to do 100 affirmations a day. And
I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of affirmations actually at all. But I tend to love hypnosis, though. I definitely have had people come to me to rewrite old money messages that they got growing up. Like they want to rewrite those in the subconscious. And that's just another way to work with them.
Right. And they have to be willing to count their money.
Yes.
Because if they're not willing to take care of their money, just like if you're not willing to take care of yourself, you're going to eventually get sick. If you're not willing to take care of your money, which is just a symbol of your energy, then it's not going to last long.
You do have to learn how to I say, tend and take care of the money. Like it becomes your good friend. So you would treat it like you would a very good friend. You treat it very well, right? But you're talking about the practical too. Like you have to have the practical stuff. Go on.
Right. What I say is that money goes to people who love and take care of it, just like people. And the thing that money loves best is to be counted. Oh, she's counting me. I think I'll tell my friends.
Love it. Yeah. So we are almost at the end of our time here. I just want to say thank you so much for this lovely conversation. Can you tell people how to find you?
ProsperityPlace.com. That's where everything happens.
All right, so that's Joan's website. She also has an active Facebook group, and she does these wonderful group energy zaps as well as group coaching. She has all kinds of offerings, and you have a great podcast. I started listening to you through your podcast. I heard you on somebody else's, and I was like, all right. I started listening to your podcast and read one of your books, did the online course, and now part of your group coaching.
Thank you. And I love doing it. If you hadn't noticed, I like to talk. And so the podcast is the perfect outlet for me because I have so much I want to share with people.
There's ones that I listen to over and over again. There's some that's like, okay, that's a good one. And that's true of all podcasts, but, well, no, I won't say that. It's not true of all the podcasts I listen to. There's definitely some that's like, I listen, I'm done. But there are definitely some of your episodes that I put on the save list and I listen to 3 or 4 times.
Oh, well, thank you. That I always kind of blush internally when people tell me that because it's like I'm just sitting in front of a microphone and talking. And when people tell me that they found me and liked it, it's the little kid inside of me goes, oh, she likes me. You know?
Right. And I see it too is sometimes it's just concepts that I'm working on. Like I've got to get this. And so I'll listen to it and then I'll listen to it again and I'll get something else and I'll listen to it again. And it's like, no, that's really important. Sometimes I don't even know why, but it's like, nope, I have this intuitive sense that it is. It's almost like there was some study they did around little kids, why little kids want to watch a show over and over and over. It's because they're learning something there. They're picking up different things. They're actually processing it differently each time that they watch it. And I feel like it's the same as an adult, right? Like I'm learning something there. Yeah.
Yes. So that's where I am. And if you sign up for any of the free stuff, or if you just go to prosperityplace.com/join now, all one word, you can sign up for my newsletter, which goes out fairly frequently and actually a couple times a week. And I'm always announcing what I'm up to.
So thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I hope you truly enjoyed today's episode. Remember that you can get free hypnosis downloads over at my website, drlizhypnosis.com, DRLIZ hypnosis.com. I work all over the world doing hypnosis. So if you're interested in working with me, please schedule a free consultation over at my website, and we'll see what your goals are and if I can be of service to you in helping you reach them. Finally, if you liked today's episode, please subscribe to the podcast or tell a friend. That way, more and more people learn about the power of hypnosis. All right, everyone, have a wonderful week. Peace.